intersection or main roads on the side road.
All right.
You see the signs and whatever, you can go to.
I'll be here in a minute.
So we ended up at.
I'll see you guys later.
Also, one goes,
Here's a bean.
something like that, certain
So, this is the
we're just like. We're just like, oh,
Yes, exactly.
how far away is it?
You don't need to. Only one. So this is it. You sad?
I love that we put that on at the end. That's kind of I was. I want fish and chips. She's on your fish and chips. So
Also, I have to say,
but what I know is
your holiday letters, we every single year, we sit around the table and we read it aloud. It's so
it's
good.
super light, the road in another direction.
Please do.
And I remember 4 years ago, because when they said the name, I said,
Yeah.
and I wrote that. Yeah, but it was a good idea, yeah.
That's it.
Okay, there she is. So the thing about
Very cool. That's exciting.
and you don't know where you're gonna go eat. And it's better to know this festival language.
So,
Because if you have this album,
stay there, Orlando.
and you want in a random bar, looking for a place that looks good, but people are saying how people do. But you can't actually. And remember, we eat at restaurants, so if you're really good in Paris, and I don't in Morocco, I have no idea how to get back to the got the experience, for instance.
Okay, so it's 7 o'clock. Reception.
An hour later, wander, I try to avoid a play restaurant chicken too much. Should be okay.
I've done that in South Korea.
Alright. Yeah,
Best place to do it is no one knew the language.
exactly, that is actually not.
Yeah.
It's in South Korea, like, yeah, they actually found.
Oh,
I know, you're like, oh, I love you back. It's so.
I just went to the neighborhood and I said, you can't have that. No, I said, I wonder what's happening. Okay.
Yeah, that totally works. There's also random stuff on the fast food variety. If you walk down. Yeah, exactly. If you walk down the road. Anyway, I think, that now it's time to get started, so we should probably.
Okay, thank you so much.
Of course,
So you guys want to run, what was voting at 7 o'clock at the reception? Voting at 7, or did you kind of online?
So, yeah, because we're just going to the market concert, they're going to close.
Oh, did you?
Oh, okay, yeah.
About the sidewalk,
Voting
that's
at
our
7, you guys
program.
can go one tomorrow.
Okay, so,
I need to work on
Okay,
it.
thank you.
Yeah, you.
See you tomorrow. So maybe I go ahead and email right now. So just tell them.
I have really sad news. Really sad news. It's just starting. No, it doesn't just double. It like brings.
The better numbers you were getting before.
Okay, so folks in the back should come forward because it's really hard to pass chocolates. I mean, I could throw them, but that glass is starting to get us a clock. Oh, and where's the other thing?
Persuading arguments.
Chocolate. I get this part.
All right, well, that wasn't incredibly successful.
No.
Well, I guess we'll get underway. I'm Donald Eastlake with Huawei, and I guess I'm acting as chair for this meeting in the absence of the chair since I'm working group secretary. So people should be aware of the note well. I assume people have seen before, but there are rules concerning IPR if you contribute to the IETF in any way. So I guess it would be desirable to have a jabber scribe or something. I don't know. Is anybody willing to volunteer to do that? Okay. Aaliyah is willing to do that. So other than that update, nobody else asked to make any presentations to this meeting, which is likely to be planned to be the last TRILL working group meeting. So I'm going to have a little presentation on TRILL history and stuff like that. Anybody have any agenda bashing topics they'd like to add? There's not that much to delete if you, but I guess not. So I guess I'll start by going over document status. I think I updated these slides are almost up to date on the document status.
That's impressive.
We do have one RFC that's been published since the last meeting. We have a whole bunch of documents that are on the RFC editor's queue, including one more that's not shown here. Of these, centralized replication was added to the RFC editor's queue a while ago, and it just really is in auth 48, needs a little bit of work. But we have the address flush, where it lets an R-bridge tell another R-bridge to forget some learned MAC addresses. Centralized replication is a way to slightly different way to handle the distribution of multi-destination frames in active-active case. The directory-assisted encapsulation uses the directory feature to control encapsulation at end nodes, but doesn't require any change in the standards for our bridges, lets them do the decapsulation. ECN support adds ECN to the TRILL header extension, which has spare bits in it. Multi-topology should be pretty straightforward, has multi-topology routing. Multi-level also, this is a multi-level which has unique nicknames, so all the nicknames in the TRILL campus, including across all the level 1 areas, have unique nicknames. There's point-to-multipoint BFD and OAM extension. TRILL transport over MPLS is an informational document about how to transport TRILL over MPLS. The vendor channel allows vendor specific extensions to be provided to the R-bridge channel feature for communicating between R-bridges. Of course, you can look at any of these to see what they have to say. There's also smart end nodes, which has been added to the RC editor's queue in the past hour or two. And it uses it's modifications to end nodes and modifications to the edge R bridges so that the end nodes can do not only encapsulation, but also can do the decapsulation. So we have one draft, TRILL over IP, which has been deferred, and I guess will be considered at the next IESG telechat in April. I guess at that point its status will be AD sponsored. And we have some other drafts. So there are two, draft IETF TRILL multi-level single nickname, which is a nickname aggregated version, provides for even larger scaling because different level 1 areas in the multi-level routing can have duplicated nicknames between them because they're aggregated to a single nickname that represents the area when they're in level 2 or in other level 1s. There's TRILL parent selection as an informational draft, didn't quite get through working group consensus. It depends on our new area director, who may want to say some words at some point, which will hopefully these can be AD sponsored. There's also 2 drafts concerning group keying and group key profiles. These are ways to do group keying for Trill over IP, multi-destination packets, and group keying for multi-destination R-bridge channel messages. Actually, the group keying draft is a very general group keying algorithm, and the one in profiles those 2 particular uses. There also are some Yang drafts, which Sue Harris has been primarily handling. Sue is under the weather. She's not, has a health problem, so she's not here, and I'm not sure what to report on those. I believe she does plan to complete those. It's a basic Trill Yang draft, and one on OAM and one on performance management. I mean, there are RFCs on how to do OAM and performance measurement in Trill, but these would be the Yang documents for those. And lastly, we have a document in IDR, which is how to send Trill link state through BGP. So that's been in IDR working group last call for a while, so I'm not sure what the status on that is. But you may need more support. If people want to look at that and support it in IDR, that might be a good thing, or comment on it, or if you don't like it, oppose it. But more comments on it in IDR would be a good thing. So, anybody have any comments or questions on any of that stuff? Okay. Hi there, Ralph Kumar. We have a remote speaker.
Oh, that's probably John. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just had a
Go
question
ahead.
on the parent selection draft. You mentioned it's not reached consensus.
We can hear you.
Is that okay?
Actually, you're breaking up a bit.
So yeah, I just had a question on that parent selection draft. I mean, you mentioned there's not consensus.
Can't hear you very well.
Okay.
Yeah, it's breaking up a lot. You want to type instead?
Yeah,
Making convey?
I'll just type. Yeah.
Yes. Send it on Jabber, perhaps.
Oh, on the parent selection draft. You had a question on the parent selection draft?
Yeah.
So, is your question how it would progress?
I imagine
That would be about it.
he's the author thereof. So.
Right. So what's going on is we had a lot of work to finish up in Trill to get things done. And in fact, after this meeting, I am planning on closing Trill. After the meeting, we've gotten all of the documents through that we anticipate getting through this working group. For the parent selection document, if you have enthusiasm for pursuing that, you have a couple of routes. One option is to bring it to RTGWG and talk about that. And that's the case for any of the Trill documents, just like we do that for VRP documents and things that don't have their specific home. Or you could also speak with Martin, who would be able to talk to you about what AD sponsoring does or does not look like. Does that answer your question? Okay, good. So that's the only piece I wanted to say, obviously, is AD is, we've gotten an amazing amount of work through with Trill, and I know that there are deployments, and as and if there are needs to do more work, as I said, the routing area working group will be available. I am expecting to close the working group in about an hour and have the mailing list remain open for conversation. There is one document, which is the Trill over IP, which didn't make the cutoff. As we talked about, there's some issues with that one, and Martin is going to take over moving that forward, but obviously it won't be as a working group draft at that point. And thank you all.
So I guess I have this presentation. I sort of took a presentation I gave on Trill a while ago, and I extended the, just on time, perhaps. We have a cake in back. Unfortunately, people who are listening remotely will not be able to partake of the cake that was just rolled into the room. But I think maybe we could take like a real brief recess, because I want to take a picture of the cake before any pieces are cut out of it. And other people are welcome to take some. I'm going to go do that.
One second. Okay. One second. Yeah. So if everyone else would come around and take two for a second. There's sparkling candles, but one second. And also, I would like to do this. So thank you so much for all of your work. It's about, you can iron it out to something.
Yeah.
Open up. And there's also some. Absolutely. And there are also cameras to go. Okay. Yes. For those of you who haven't been following, Donald has proved an amazing job. Just give a little closer to it. Well, I asked on Chatter so they can nominate people as co-chairs. Since they're not pretending kids, they're giving the cake themselves. It'll be able to have a proxy. And we're used to proxy situations, right? So.
This is actually, oh, it's pretty stiff. So,
She's here, she's got sick, she got sick on the plane, and she's just, yeah, she's flying home on Wednesday, because that's the earliest she can get, and she's just really not doing well. Hello, you are in perfect timing, there's cake.
Nice surprise.
sure.
I'm really gonna check on Jabber and see if anyone is nominated, so we didn't have a second piece. I really do need to help out with eating cake, because there's a lot of cake.
Oh, yeah.
That's all right, Aaliyah.
Yeah, what's
The
that?
AD who chartered Trill is here, and the AD who put it to rest, so. They're both ends.
It's good.
Thanks, Sharpie.
This is the last meeting.
Wow. Wow, congratulations.
I was,
Aaliyah, do you want cake?
Of course I want cake. Do I look crazy? Sorry, do I look crazy or really normal?
Aaliyah. Wow. That's wonderful.
Yeah, wow. I'm not sure which one.
No, Aaliyah's gonna be much more. Aaliyah, do you have cake for you?
Gorgeous. Sure, well, that's kind of big, but.
But then you can't get the shot, that's really what so there is that, but you should have one. Yeah, I think that's my daughter and come down with me. She could have cake, but she insists on saying that she wants to leave without something from presentation, and I'm like, it doesn't work that way, kiddo. She's 9, though, so she still has a little bit of learning to do. Very good.
Oh, yeah.
Probably. Yeah, we're gonna go through. So
You never know, another session is 1 hour long, so we have the time to eat everything.
I don't know, I don't have that much appetite. I mean, I appreciate the thought, but.
Stay in the room until all of the cake is gone?
Well, we can just send a message to the attendees list at the end of the session saying, there's still some cake left in Palace C, come and get it.
Because of the great tea, very long. Whereas Jerry Phillips would say, "That's really yours, that's the other stuff." This is like, you know, raising it up. It's like just used a lot, and, you know, that's, it's important, you know, change how people thought about literature. And we're also, so.
So I have this presentation, I took a presentation I'd made on Trill a few years ago, and I tweaked it around and stuff. It still has way too many slides, but I'll zip through the ones that are, people should already know. But a few of the ones are kind of interesting to think about again. So, what is Trill? That's interesting. Why does this not? Maybe I should, let me. Okay, well, I tell you what, I will solve that problem by using the, it's the wrong working group. If I use the, oh, that's not here because it's over there. Well, okay. It has animation in it, but apparently that's not quite compatible with the, oh, okay, so there's a 3 PDF, okay. So what we'll do is we'll go over and get the PDF version. That'll be faster because there won't be the animation. Oh, it's not what I wanted, where I wanted to go. Okay, so now I need to smash this to be, well, I can just move this over here. Let's try doing that. And let's go from there. There we go. Okay. So basically, Trill is a very simple idea. You encapsulate the frames with a hop count, route them via ISIS, and decapsulate them when they arrive. Creates all these great features. So the reason that this wasn't done before was that when bridging was first designed, there were all these constraints that people hardly remember these days. I mean, you couldn't, first of all, the Ethernet you couldn't change the frame. There was no bits you could use. And early equipment really rigidly enforced the Ethernet length limit of 1,512 bytes if you include the address, or 1,500 data. So you couldn't encapsulate because it would not work. And it was desirable not to change any of the end nodes. So bridging had these enormous constraints. So spanning tree was a great solution, but it's really pretty brittle. One of the differences between routing and bridging is that routing only sends stuff out if it gets enabling messages on a port. So it sort of fails in the safe direction if it can't process or fails to process control messages, whereas bridging sends stuff out all the ports unless it gets messages that indicate it's unsafe. So it fails in the unsafe direction, tends to melt things down with data loops. So TRILL is designed to combine the features of both routers and bridges. Has lots of other features, some of which are now possessed by other protocols, but the tables grow only with the size of the number of TRILL routers, TRILL-R bridges, not with the number of end stations. It's compatible with our IP routers, so the TRILL campus is transparent to routers like bridges are. Supports the VLANs and so forth. Has MTU support, active-active connection at the edge. We've added directory features and multi-topology. And of course, like Spanning Tree, I mean, unlike every other protocol besides Spanning Tree, it has a poem, which is Algorithm version 2, which was actually written by Ray Perlner, Radio's son. Radio wrote the original algorithm for Spanning Tree, so I won't burden you with reading this, but it's here. Also, I put algorithm, the poem for Spanning Tree, in the supplemental slides at the end. So it's kind of interesting because there's sort of this hierarchy of things. So bridges don't see hubs or repeaters. And if you have hubs and repeaters and stuff, it just sort of looks like a bigger cable, like multi-drop Ethernet or something. The fact that hubs and repeaters repeat everything, that mode of operation is terminated by a bridge, which looks at the stuff and might decide not to forward it or whatever. And then TRILL switches are above that. To them, bridged LANs appear to be transparent, but they terminate the Spanning Tree algorithm. So a Spanning Tree is never sent through a TRILL campus. You can take a bridge LAN, you can replace the bridges one at a time by TRILL switches, and as you do so, it gets increasingly efficient, and the Spanning Tree domains get chopped and become smaller and smaller, which is a good thing because Spanning Tree doesn't work very well when you get large domains. The TRILL switches run the TRILL protocol, and routers layer 3 at the top level, everything below that. A TRILL campus looks transparent to IP routers, but IP routers terminate the TRILL protocol and don't forward the TRILL things through them. And this is mostly determined by how they treat various multicast addresses. So this really all happened because in November 2002, Beth Israel Deaconess Hospital in Boston had a total network meltdown. They had been purchasing various other hospitals and clinics, and they just kept sort of plugging all these layer 2 networks into each other. And it kind of worked for a while until it exceeded the critical length for Spanning Tree, the hop limit, which is kind of an arbitrary limit in Spanning Tree, and suddenly the whole thing melted down. And I probably should mention who the manufacturer of the equipment was, but anyway, it took a while for the equipment to get upgraded to stuff which would solve this problem, and then to chop up their network into pieces so that Spanning Tree would work. In the meantime, for like days, all the paperwork in this major hospital was being done by hand, like on paper and pencil. And the newspaper article specifically says Spanning Tree. And you don't find newspaper articles mentioning Spanning Tree very often. So Radio decided to do something better about this. So this is the main history part of this. So I went back a little ways. 1964, packet switching invented, Ethernet invented, link state routing invented. In 85 was when Spanning Tree was devised. In 87, Radio designed DECnet Phase 5, otherwise known as ISIS. There's much minor tweaks to make it more ITU-ish. And then 5 years, so I guess it was 15 years later, this problem occurs. And Radio designed something which basically uses ISIS to provide a more bridging-like interface so that the end stations think they're talking to a big Ethernet when it's really being routed. She presented this to Infocom initially, then to IEEE 802, and it wasn't met with a very welcoming reception there. So she presented it to the IETF, and a working group was chartered. So initially, they just had the chair of Eric Nordmark, and Margaret then Wasserman Cullen was the Internet AD when it was chartered. Fairly soon thereafter, the Internet AD was changed to Mark Townsley. Margaret didn't run again. And fairly soon, a little bit longer, like about a year later, I was added as co-chair. So it looked like in 2008 that it was like done, it was about to come out, when a sort of semi-fatal MTU problem was found with the protocol. So a whole bunch of MTU features were added to it, including ISIS probe and ACT PDUs and various things that a MTU feature so the feature means you can be safe with somewhat reduced MTUs. It also makes it possible for it to sort of know what the MTU is and be able to take advantage campus wide if you happen to have all your links support jumbo frames. So you can use jumbo link state protocol messages and so on and so forth with it. The only things you can't do jumbo are things like hellos, because you want to do hellos to discover a new R bridge to find out maybe that R bridge has a lower MTU. Because if you're using, anyway. So there, it looks like for some reason Trill didn't meet in the July 2008 and 2009 meetings. Every other meeting in this entire interval, the Trill working group met. At least there's no minutes or entry in the proceedings. So there's this problem in applicability statement finally came out, which I think is slightly out of date. Then there was another change in Internet Area Directory to Ralph Drom's. That was convenient because at the time Ralph Drom's sat about 100 feet from me. So whenever I needed AD attention, I could get up. I was consulting to Cisco at the time, and it was very convenient. Yeah, for me. I don't think he minded so much. I mean, if he told me to go away or come back later, I certainly would do that. I don't know. Anyway, so this basically this MTU problem caused something like a 2-year delay, a little somewhat less, but it moved from 2008 to 2010. So the base protocol was publication was requested, and then it took a while for it to get approved. And on March 15th, the base protocol was approved, and at that time the ether types had been allocated. The block of multicast addresses was allocated. I at the time wanted to use IETF multicast addresses. IETF has an OUI. IANA can allocate multicast addresses, but the working group wanted to take them out of the block that's used by 802.1. So we submitted an application and got a block allocated, very low multicast numbers, kind of adjacent to the ones actually used by bridging. And I've seen unhappy expressions on the face of some people when reading this, looking. But anyway, so we had an interop in 2010, very early, just control plane, no data was passed, but it's exchanging hellos and establishing adjacency and stuff like that. And we took, because the approval, it took a while to get through the RC editor's queue. It was in 2011 when the base protocol spec 6325, which really the foundation of stuff, got published. It was held up, I guess, by the full use of ISIS, which went through the ISIS working group. And at the time, there was some friction, and it's decreased with time. So now I don't think there's any real problem or anything. If Trill wanted something from the ISIS working group now, I don't think Trill would have any more or less difficulty than anybody else would getting anything out of the ISIS working group. And very early there was a RFC, a Trill over PPP, on a different link protocol. Trill over PPP doesn't have any ether types, uses PPP code points and everything like that. Sort of established the architecture for Trill link usage. And we got rechartered. We got rechartered periodically. In 2012, there was a second control plane interop. At that point, John Hudson was added as working group secretary. We did a burst of documents there, including a MIB, OAM requirements, directory assistance, high-level design. Then the Internet AD for Trill changed again to Ted Lemon. And there was the third interop in 2013. And that one actually passed data. And I was there with Huawei equipment, and it all kind of worked and everything. And, people could send unicast and multicast and everything. Pretty neat. Then, let's see, we're getting rechartered. So then a lot of stuff happened in 2014. So early in 2014, Trill was moved to the routing area, and Leah became the area director. Eric Nordmark left as a working group co-chair, and John Hudson, who had been secretary, became a working group co-chair, and Sue Harris became working group secretary. There was also this sort of massive burst of documents. And if you look at this, you'll notice the whole first bunch, like all but the bottom two, are consecutive RFC numbers. And that's because they were all held up on the 7176 trill use of ISIS changes, as I recall. Anyway, there was a normative dependency, which so these things all piled up and plop, they all came out at once. Whole bunch of stuff in here, various forms of improvements I won't go through, but BFD support, some various clarifications, corrections, and updates from experience. You know, at these interops, needless to say, there were, especially the early ones, there were some questions people had about what the spec meant or where it might be ambiguous or something. And those early ones, typically there were people at the interop, you know, with the source code, and we'd discuss how it should work, and they would like patch their code a bit and recompile, and you know. The Saudi statement and the problem statement for active active. Now, this huge burst of RFCs came out. Turns out most of these are standards, proposed standards, and I was an author on many of them, which made some people unhappy. So I swapped with Sue Hares, and she became the co-chair, and I became secretary. 2015 is this basically the Trill OAM draft document was published. 2016, we sort of have more documents coming through. Various ways, the implementation of active-active. The active-active work had started very early, but took a while to get through. An OAM MIB, so on and so forth, various extensions and things. And in 2017, we had some of these RFCs was obsoleted earlier Trill RFCs when we'd found additions or improvements or clarifications to make. And so far in 2018, only one RFC has come out, which is the ARPA neighbor discovery optimization. There will be more in 2018, what we suspect from the huge list in the RFC editors queue. So this is just I think this is complete, I'm not sure, a cumulative list of the companies that participated in the Trill interoperability events at the University of New Hampshire Interoperability Laboratory. A couple references. One is an article in the Internet Protocol Journal on Trill, relatively early, but still. And then also this is a reference to the original paper presented by Radia at Infocom 2004, actually before the word Trill had sort of been invented, just referring to them as R bridges or routing bridges. So that's my little Trill history presentation. Like I say, I threw on a couple of the algorithm for spanning tree and a bunch of slides explaining how Trill works and how multi-destination works, why the Trill nicknames, why ISIS was selected as opposed to OSPF, et cetera, how Mac learning works, society, et cetera, are on the end. So, right, oh,
Anxiety between the two groups. I know. When you were around in the yes.
So, does anybody have any, I guess I'll go get the, any other things they want to bring up for this meeting? Oh, what time? Yeah, 6:20? Yeah, it's about. So if not, I guess I will, adjourn this here meeting, which is the last Trill meeting. So, okay. There you go. There is our blue sheets up here. I assume everybody in the room has signed them.
Says thank you.
Okay. Thanks. Thanks, John, for. What?
I haven't looked at their YouTube videos, subscribe.
There's a YouTube video of a presentation I made. Yeah, it was a presentation to Nanog. It was quite a while ago, I think. But there was a sort of, it was called the Great Debate. I don't know, the thing I didn't like so much about it, I was there, I presented Trill, and several people presented shortest path bridging. And, I felt kind of outnumbered and stuff by it. So I'm not sure I did a particularly good presentation. But anyway, I think you can find all that on YouTube. Or at least in the Nanog files, if it's not on YouTube for some reason. Because Nanog, I think, keeps videos of their presentations for past meetings on their website. So should I post a message to the attendees list saying there's cake here? Okay, good move.
Fundamentally, anything we can do for the secretariat, given all they do for us,
Yeah.
is a good thing.
Right.
Mostly happy.
What's that?
I said it's a happy Saturday.
Yes.
But it's a mostly happy day.
Congratulations, I didn't realize this would be the.
That'll happen someday. Yeah.
So a lot of the work about
And more the point is
the AK award ceremony.
Yeah. I think that should be in Hawaii.
Okay,
But I have to go to it.
yeah. I wanted to ask you your preference.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. That was wonderful. Right now, AJ
Yes.
is targeting for San Diego in
Okay.
July. And that way, we'll have them in July and then we'll have maybe AJ this week.
Okay.
Consider it done.
Thank you. I have you're the person at the top, so.
As far as those laws, and there's different.
Yeah, I'll look at a list from you, the contributors.
Yes, and I should come up with such a list and double check with Mark Hamilton, Dave Philippe to make sure. Because there were
Culture and ability to take.
people who were, did contribute early and then had to stop showing up because of directors and their management and stuff, so. Well, I can't even remember the name of that guy from Cisco, who, David, somebody, Toby McKay. Anyway, it's all on the record.
Yeah, platforms.
Yeah, Clopper, like that. So yes, I thought not too huge a number of people, I think, because we never had that big a mob, but it's a big little number.
Yeah, so it'll be good. Okay, so let me see if there's a template.